Valspar Ultra starts at just $29.98 a gallon. So we've got you covered when your daughter wants to paint her room again, after last year's masterpiece of a unicorn mural.
Dad, please.
Or when you realize that maybe you went too hard on the grayish.
I miss color.
Or when you were sure you wanted a home gym, but your elliptical is currently hanging your laundry.
What about a home office?
Shop everything you need for your next phase with Valspar. Available at Lowe's. Price varies by Sheen.
Hello, gunfighters, and welcome back to Gunfighter Life. It is a blessed morning here in the high mountains of northern Arizona. I am a blessed man. Just got done with a great workout, Bible reading and prayer this morning, and I had enough time left over to get one of these podcasts out. Hanging out outside with my alpha male coffee cup and my Rhodesian Ridgeback puppy, Alexander Hamilton, who just this weekend turned 7 months old. And going to the gym this morning, I saw a couple of prairie dogs, which got me thinking about this episode. Prairie dogs, one of the quintessential varmints. So I thought we would talk about at least my top 3 pick for varmint cartridges. I think it'll be a shorter episode, so we'll plug in the bio at the end. But I will say first and foremost, I am a Christian, a follower of God, a servant of God. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. Alright, varmint hunting. And for varmint hunting, we're going to say anything from a ground squirrel in size up to a, let's say, coyote. But pretty much anything in that class, from ground squirrels, prairie dogs, woodchucks, marmots. Something that I love to do, something to keep the skills sharp, something you can a lot of times do all year. Big chunks of the year when you can't do big game hunting. It's helpful to farmers a lot of times, ranchers, to grow your food and my food and food for livestock. But let's get into the top 3 picks for varmint cartridges. And generally for a varmint cartridge, you want a lighter bullet. You want it to dump its energy relatively quickly because the body of most varmints are relatively small. If you think about the front of a prairie dog to the back of a prairie dog, the bullet continues through the prairie dog, all that energy is lost. So you want it to dump its energy inside that animal. Also, for some applications, you want high velocity. 1, to make the bullet split apart, and 2, to, let's say, purchase you some range, to buy you some range on that animal. A flat trajectory. With that, I don't think my top pick will surprise anybody. My top pick for... My dog's carrying around a bottle. It's pretty funny. My top pick for the best varmint cartridge is going to be the 223 Remington. If you have a gun chambered in 5.56, that's fine. But 223 Remington, and I'm not talking about the 62 grain armor piercing. I'm not talking about the 55 grain FMJ bullets, although if you get those cheap enough, they can work. I'm talking about 55 grain soft points or lighter. I'm talking about purpose-built varmint ammunition. The reason the 223 is great is not because it's, ballistically superior to a lot of other rounds. In fact, it's ballistically inferior to a lot of other rounds. It's because economy of scale, because of economic reasons, because there's so much of it made and it's so popular that it's cheap for what you get. In fact, that's the reason I don't own a 22 Magnum anymore. Is I like the 22 Magnum, it's a great cartridge, but I can literally reload or a lot of times even purchase factory ammo in 223 cheaper than I can get 22 Magnum. So why wouldn't I shoot the 223? And there are some certain applications where the 22 Magnum is better, but none for me. You can shoot that, like I said, cheaper than a lot of 22 Magnum. Shoot it cheaper than probably any other center fire round. Like, I really like the 22 Hornet. It didn't make the list today because it's exorbitantly more expensive than a 223 and less powerful. I still think it's a great cartridge, but the 223 for price per round, and if you're talking about a good day of varmint hunting, you can kill a lot of stuff. I mean, you can lay waste to dozens, if not hundreds, of prairie dogs in a day. If you get on a good ranch with a damage stamp, and that's just overrun with prairie dogs. So economy of scale, and the 223 is capable, especially, like I said, we're not talking about the 62 grain or like the 77 grain, offensive ammo. That's good for what it is. I'm talking about 55 grain and lighter, even getting down into the 30-something grains. I'm going to pause this for a second while I grab my old Hornady reloading manual to give you some data for us ballistic nerds. One of the few times math is fun. Now, if you're mostly used to the AR-15 for the 223 and a 16-inch carbine and your 62 grain bullet, you know, you might be talking 2,800 feet a second. But if you're talking a Varmint cartridge, if you're talking a 40 grain bullet, then we're talking a 40 grain bullet out of a full-length rifle and my Hornady reloading manual at 3,800 feet a second. Again, 3,800 feet a second. That is a ridiculous gain in velocity. And this manual doesn't go that low, but if you're looking for my favorite cartridge for reloading for varmints, for the prairie dog size and down, I'd even say woodchucks or marmots and down, look for the reloading data for a 36 grain varmint grenade. And if you don't know what a varmint grenade is, it's basically a frangible bullet, like sintered metal powder with a light copper jacket. And I don't even know how to describe it. You can look up some YouTube videos better for visual, but varmint grenades on varmints are ridiculously effective. Load those 36 grain bullets, to at least 3,800 feet a second, maybe faster. They just annihilate, even at distance. That's one of my favorite loads to load for when I hand load for 223, although a lot of times I don't because it's just so cheap to buy. And if you're looking for that load, I do believe Black Hills loads the 36 grain varmint grenades in 223 if you're not a hand loader. But just a quick aside there, if you are loading 223, I really like Varget for pretty much everything. I also really like Benchmarks, another good powder. If you're talking about prairie dog hunting, get a good, affordable powder. Shoots well out of your gun. Those 36 grain varmint grenades, pretty much anything, 50 grains and down, 55 grains and down, and the 223 is a great varmint cartridge. The next pick we're going to talk about for my top 3 is a 22-250. The 22-250 is an awesome and quintessential kind of American varmint hunting cartridge. There's really nothing varmint-wise you can't kill with the other two cartridges I talk about, the 223 and the next one, but the 22-250 kind of lets you purchase distance. I don't know if anybody's ever put it that way. You can kill all these things with a 22 short if you want to. But what the higher velocity and bigger rounds give you is flatter trajectory, less lag time, less effect by wind. It makes a difference if you're shooting a 1-inch target at 200 yards. It lets you shoot the same size animal at greater distance. It also kind of increases that kill zone. Talking about coyotes, you can kill a coyote with a 22. Plenty of coyotes have fallen at a 22 long rifle. But I would be comfortable doing that with a headshot or a very precise behind-the-shoulder body shot. But you're talking about a 22-250 with a good, rapid, expanding ballistic tip bullet. You're talking about you just increased your kill area, your acceptable shooting area on that animal to the entire chest cavity. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to shoot a coyote and wound it and let it run off. I want that animal to not suffer. You really purchase some killing area on that animal when you move up to the 223 and especially the 22-250. Talked about load data for the 223. If you're talking about an ultimate varmint cartridge, especially for range and distance and the killing area, we talked about a 40 grain bullet. I'm in the Hornady reloading manual. It's a quite old one that I've had for a long time, but it lists the 40 grain bullet published loads, a bunch of them, at 4,100 feet a second. 4,100 feet a second. Again, for most of you that are used to the AR-15 carbine, I'll remind you, your 62 grain bullet is going about 4,800 feet a second, give or take, a lot of different factors. But let's just call it that. From that to 4,100 feet a second. 22-250, a quintessential American icon for varmint hunting. It is a great round. I had a really nice, one of the guns that, like I said, I'm not a gun collector. I've said in the past, I'm not a gun collector, I'm a gun fighter. With the 223 being so much cheaper to shoot, buy ammo for, especially factory ammo, I don't have a 22-250 anymore, but I had an old Remington M77 with a bull barrel, with a beautiful wood stock, and I really wish that was one of the ones I held on to, because that thing was amazingly accurate. I bought it used. I don't know if anybody had any work done to it, or if it was just straight from the factory, but that thing, with just about any load, was just amazingly accurate, and a great varmint cartridge and a great varmint gun. As little as I had into that gun, I probably should have kept it for like long-range varmint hunting and coyote hunting. It is a great gun. But the 22-250, it has to make the list. It is just, like I said, quintessential American icon for hunting and taking varmints at distance. And especially if you hand load and you know what you're doing. There's not a giant difference in large rifle primers and small rifle primers going from the 223 to the 22-250. Really all you're doing is shoving more powder in it. And it is quite a bit more powder, but powder's not that much expensive. You could shoot exactly the same bullets in the 22-250. You could shoot those, 40 grain varmint bullets or 50 grain varmint bullets in both. So you're not moving up a lot in price if you're hand loading. You're moving up a lot in price if you're buying a factory ammo. But I mean, if you're hunting coyotes at several hundred yards, 22-250 is kind of primo for that.
There's nothing more satisfying than finding the perfect green paint for your living room. Except maybe popping open that can of Valspar Ultra and rolling that first smooth stroke on the wall. And there's nothing more satisfying than admiring your freshly painted wall.
Ooh.
Except maybe peeling off the painter's tape to see those crisp edges. But the most satisfying part of all? Valspar Ultra's price tag, starting at $29.98 a gallon. Affordable, durable, available at Lowe's. Price varies by sheen.
Now let's talk about the last varmint cartridge that makes my top 3 list. And how could it not? The 22 long rifle. Again, we talk about economy of scale. One of my favorite ways to hunt them, especially when I was in areas where they had ranchers that had thousands of acres of alfalfa fields and just getting overrun with prairie dogs. You could go there and get a damage stamp issued. Really, me and my buddies would go with a vehicle with a sunroof or in the back of a truck, and 2 would stand in the back of the truck, and when they saw a group of prairie dogs, they would pound on the back of the truck, and one person would drive and load mags, and you would literally could hop out of that truck and lay waste to as many prairie dogs as you could effectively engage targets, meaning if you could hit them and kill them every time you brought that rifle up or every time you came back from recoil, just about it seemed like there was another prairie dog. So you were limited by how fast you could load mags and how good a shot you were, but you could just take out bricks of 22 ammo and annihilate prairie dogs. One of the great American pastimes, in my opinion. Far more fun to me than baseball. They're helping out ranchers because they're eating, I don't know how much a prairie dog can eat in baby alfalfa sprouts, but I gotta imagine it's quite a bit. And when there's literal waves of them moving across the landscape like locusts, and you know that you're doing some good by annihilating those things, which also carry bubonic plague, by the way. 22 long rifle, you can literally just bring out bricks of ammo. The 22 long rifle, again, economy of scale. If you're talking ballistics to ballistics, would a 17 HMR be better? Yeah, for prairie dogs and small varmints, for sure it will be better. But again, I can probably shoot 223 and especially reload 223 cheaper than I can buy 17 HMR a lot of times. But I can buy a lot of 22. Let's say if I'm going out for a weekend and my budget for ammo is $100. Even today, with today's crazy inflation, I can buy a lot of 22 ammo for $100. A lot more than anything else. So again, if we're just talking about being able to engage a lot of targets, the 22 long rifle has to make the list for top 3 varmint cartridges. Just an amazing cartridge for that. Again, economy of scale. And if you've thought in the past that 22 long rifle hollow points, especially good ones, are a gimmick, I can tell you from firsthand experience with a lot of data that 22 hollow points on small creatures do a lot more damage than just 22 round nose. If that's all you can get, but 22 hollow points are, especially good ones, quite a bit more effective. And if you're talking about a good balance between being able to shoot a lot and being inexpensive, while also being effective on game and accurate, the Federal bulk packs, I think they're like $525, and the Federal, I believe, Champion 36 grain hollow points, they to me strike a very good balance of affordability, accuracy, and good terminal performance on small creatures. Obviously, CCI mini mags are kind of the premium. I really like the 36 grain CCI mini mags. We're talking about less volume of fire, then yeah, I like those, but they do cost more. So those are my top 3 picks for Ultimate Varmint cartridges. And, let me know. GoodShepherdTraining.com. Or again, you can just leave a review of the podcast and put in, I like the episode, but you left out whatever is your favorite Varmint cartridge. How could you not list the 222 Rem Mag or whatever yours is? There's a lot of good Varmint cartridges. How could you not list the 6mm bench rest or whatever? And if you guys like this, I would like to do an entire kind of episode on prairie dog hunting, because I think it is one of the last great hunting experiences a common man can have out west. Like, without having to win an elk lottery and spend a buttload of money on tags and everything else, maybe a guide. I think you could DIY and come out west and just have a lot of fun hunting. So I would like to do a whole episode on that. Let me know if you're interested. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. If you like this episode and you want to support, there's a Patreon link on there, because these are free to produce, but they are, these are free for you to listen to, but they're not free to produce. They cost money for web hosting, for servers, for a website, for all those things. If you want to support, again, the Patreon link, goodshepherdtraining.com. If you want an Alpha Male coffee cup like the one I talked about, if you're not aware of this podcast, we also do one called the Alpha Male Podcast, which encompasses more than just hunting and shooting and gunfighting and ballistics, general manliness the right way. And if you care about the important stuff, Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Anyway, you can find those all at goodshepherdtraining.com. And again, that coffee cup and some other merchandise you'll see on there. If you want to support the podcast another way, you can buy merchandise on there. I'll plug in the bio at the end just so you know that I may have some kind of idea as to what I'm talking about here. As a thanks for staying tuned to the end of the episode, I'll throw in a tactical tip. This tactical tip will not have to do with varmint hunting, really. Generally, you don't spot and stalk in varmint hunting. But when you're selecting hunting boots, just don't... There's more criteria than just what looks cool or what feels comfortable. If you're going to spot and stalk hunt, if you're the kind of hunter that doesn't set up on a tripod and shoot animals from 600 yards away, if you actually like to get up close where you can smell them and be in the midst of them and see them with your naked eye, really pay attention to the sole of the shoe. A lot of times they do it based on like comfort and hikeability, which is great too. I like to hike long distances, but you can find a boot that's good for hiking with a good sole that's also somewhat soft. I mean, like if you push on it with your fingernail, it'll go in a little bit. You would be surprised at how much difference that makes in volume when you are trying to walk quietly through leaves, through sticks, through branches, actual spot and stalk hunting. So a tactical tip, when you're selecting boots, this can even be for tactical applications if you're trying to walk quietly. A nice, soft-soled hunting boot. My favorite ones for stalking are the red. I'm looking at them right now. They're the Redheads, kind of a muck-style boot, but I use them out west too. And they have a really soft sole, like so that when I'm walking on things, I can feel them underneath my feet. If I step on a branch underneath leaves, I can feel that and then back up so I don't snap that branch. You know, and that can be the difference between a successful day's hunt and a big quantity of meat and going home hungry. So again, a nice, soft, malleable, squishy sole on your hunting boot if you spot and stalk hunt. It's a tactical tip of the day. And even for tactical applications for, trying to sneak up on a door without getting noticed before you kick it in. Tactical verse of the day, because it's such a beautiful day today. I'm literally sitting out in the morning with my shirt off, getting some sun while I'm recording this podcast. Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows us his handiwork. General revelation, how could you go out into the great outdoors and see a beautiful sunset or landscape and not see the majesty and beauty of the great creator and recognize his power? The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows us his handiwork. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in L.A.P.D. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. F.B.I. certified firearms instructor, N.R.A, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an S.R.T special response team in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic.